everybody. This is episode 3, season 5 of Read, Return, Repeat. I'm your host, inspiration librarian, Daniel Peeweewardy. I'm really excited for this next episode that we're doing today because it's about The Onion, which, for those that don't know, The Onion was a satirical newspaper that was started in 1988 that then, as times changed, became a pretty popular website, YouTube channel. There's even a couple of shows. High school and college, Daniel, loved The Onion. I got a lot of laughs out of it. We're talking about The Onion because we're interviewing the author, funny because it's true, how The Onion created modern American news satire, Christine Wenc. Christine Wenc is originally from Spring Green, Wisconsin, and she was a member of The Onion's original staff. The Onion was started at UW-Madison in 1988, and she worked on it for the first 2 years. Also for this episode, we'll be joined by Jenny Durham, enrichment librarian at the Wichita Public Library. She's going to be talking in the second half of the interview with Christine about media literacy and satire's role, or new satire's role in media literacy, because as a lot of you know, The Onion, which kind of created this genre of news satire that then a bunch of other people copied and then used for different purposes to kind of help influence elections, plays a big role in media literacy now, or in being able to acknowledge satire. So it was really cool to talk with Christine about that. And overall, it's a really cool interview. Christine is a public historian also, and she's worked on public history projects at Harvard, as well as the Brigham Women's Hospital and the National Library of Medicine. She also restores prairie ecosystems in her free time. It was a really awesome chance to talk with her. She lives in Wisconsin. So let's go ahead and just jump into this conversation, and we'll join Christine and Jenny and talk about the book. Funny because it's true, how The Onion created modern American news satire. Christine, thank you for joining us on the podcast, and it's awesome to have you on the podcast. I love the book. I read the audio version of it, and did you record that?
I did. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I really, being a huge fan of being a Midwest kid and graduating high school in 2004, like a millennial, like The Onion was a big part of like high school and college. So before we jump into the book, I figured we'll just this is kind of a 2-part episode. Act 1, we'll talk about you and the book, and then Act 2, we're going to talk about media literacy and like how the information age has changed and things. And that's what Jenny's here with us for as our enrichment librarian. But I teach a lot of media literacy classes, and I've done quite a few speeches on it.
Oh, wow. So you probably know more about this than I do.
Maybe. I mean, I also am like in that. I'm technically Gen X, but barely. I'm like 1 month away from being a millennial.
Oh, so right. Okay. We'll allow you. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm like 1 month away. It was just really tail end of 1980. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, and I was really excited. I also listened to the book on audio because I'm a big audiobook fan. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm always in favor of being on Midwestern.
Thank you. Yeah, on the very cusp of it, we are like technically like.
Oh, you're Great Plains, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. We have the Midlander voice is what we've been.
Oh, okay.
Except for me, I actually grew up in Michigan.
Okay. So you definitely, I'm always like, is it just the Great Lakes states? Is it the other? Like, we don't really know. Like,
I have an upper Midwestern accent that hasn't gone away, even though I've been here a decade. So. And I think the library our region is considered Southern Mountain. It's a weird region I've never seen. I've only seen on random statistics. Southern Mountain Plains or something.
Yeah.
It's
other, like you're kind of other. That's
So Christine, before you wrote this book, and you were a writer on The Onion, and can you just like tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and like how this came to be?
Yeah, so I was on the original staff of The Onion as a UW-Madison undergraduate back in 1988. And my roommate, one of my old roommates, Tim Keck, is the person who started The Onion. So I was literally there from day one. And I was a copy editor. Everybody kind of did everything. It was like a startup. Tim Keck comes from actually a kind of a midwestern newspaper family, which I talk about in the book. So he sort of grew up in a newspaper environment and, sort of knew how to do it, just from being there, even though we were all between the ages of 18 and 20, when it started. I was only there for a couple of years in the beginning, but then I did know a few people that were involved later, or the people who went on to make it really famous. So I always sort of paid attention to The Onion. But when I moved back to Madison, where I'd been on the East Coast for about 25 years and moved back in 2017. And when I moved back to Madison, you naturally think about, what you're doing when you were in college. It was also during the first Trump administration when people were first talking about fake news and being really horrified about it. And so I thought, gosh, I wonder what The Onion people think of this. And then I also found some inaccurate information about, The Onion's origins and stuff online. I was like, maybe I'll write a book about this. And so the pandemic actually, because I was a freelance, I work on public history projects. I've done projects for like the National Park Service and National Library of Medicine, stuff like that. So I had my own business. During the pandemic, I was able to get pandemic emergency funding. And so I used that funding to write my book proposal. So that's kind of how the book came to be. I had an idea, and I also had the actual sort of material, possibility of working on it, and there you have it.
I doing research. For this interview, I was kind of shocked, given how long The Onion has been around and its impact on America, or the world in general. There hasn't been a lot of oral histories or anything like you see with The Simpsons has so many books, and did you find so? I guess my question is why do you think that is? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there were other people who have tried to do things and they never, didn't quite make it for one way or another. The Onion's also, it's like The Onion is big, but it's not super, it's not super famous. Even The Simpsons are probably way more famous than The Onion. There isn't actually an old Onion editor who still writes for The Simpsons even now. But I don't know why it never happened. But I was, there was an opportunity there, and I actually ended up getting The Onion's old agent, the one who was the agent for all their books, through a strange serendipitous connection with the university. And so he understood, The Onion's history and impact. So he was able to pitch the book in a way. But yeah, it started out as an oral history. But at the time, he was getting responses from publishers that were how about an oral history of Friends? And I was just because I was trying to put it in this deeper context of the history of media, because when I realized when I was working on it that the history of The Onion is also a history of the media since the 80s, since The Onion has been satirizing the media since then. And so I really had to learn about that as well. And I didn't want it to be, just this internal history. I wanted to place it in a larger context. So anyway, it changed from an oral history into a regular prose history. It's been doing pretty well. So I've been pretty happy with the response.
I think I expected it to be more of a pop oral history book, and then I was this is what we're doing, this is a kind of academic, all right, and it's I think because it's The Onion, I typically would not read a hardcore history book like that, and I was I was, because I knew because I remember watching Mr. Show and seeing you would always hit these things oh, I remember that. I was I experienced that as a living through this. So that was kind of a really cool way, and it got me really engaged. So I really enjoyed that format for the book. And
oh, good. Okay. Yeah. I was just saying I'm trying to not make it academic and boring, I got this, I have a strange background of after The Onion, I became the editor of Seattle's Alt Weekly. And I also worked at Wisconsin Public Radio newsroom for a while. So I'm sort of and then I did go to graduate school in history. So I'm trying to like kind of mush all these things together and to make something that, as like real history, but also is hopefully, not a slog to read. So that's why I put there's a lot of Onion front pages in there for, to introduce like jokes throughout the whole book too.
Doing the audiobook, I also had a physical copy and kind of like thumbed through
it. Good. Okay. Yeah. Originally there was going to be, I was like, oh, you got to have the covers in there for the audiobook that at least people can look at, but I'm glad you had
I know some audiobook some audiobook websites are starting to add like supplemental PDFs you can access and stuff. I wasn't sure.
I was going to say, because a lot of them will mention, I listen to a lot of audiobooks where they'll like mention, see supplemental PDF, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
But I kind of had the same reaction to the book when I was listening to it, especially when you get to the like post 9/11 where I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I remember that. Like, I remember before it came out and thinking to myself, how are they going to handle this? Like, because I knew there was an issue coming out and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this could be really bad.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, like, I think from like the post 2000, I was like remembering a lot of that stuff that I had engaged with it a lot because I was in college the first time when I went during those years. And so, a lot of that brought back, there was some nostalgia there.
So you kind of mentioned like some of the information that was about the Onion was kind of like wrong. And I was just going to ask about like, what was like some of that, if you want to talk about it, or just, I guess my question is like, what do you think that came from like, bad reporting, or do you think that was more like, do you think there's some mythologizing going on with the Onion? Because I do feel like growing up, I would hear about the Onion like as a teenager, and then like there's like a whole, like in college parties, there's more of like an oral history of the Onion going on. So like, or oral. Yeah. So I didn't know if you felt like there was a little bit of mythologizing happening when you're doing your research.
I mean, there was basically nobody from the Onion has ever, except for one former editor, has ever like stepped up and sort of taken credit, and everyone's been very, midwestern and modest, or couldn't get their act together enough to do it or something, I don't know. And in sort of that void, stuff just kind of appears like there's this thing going around that like, oh, the name of the Onion comes from this old journalistic term for like a juicy news story with many layers. And I'm just like, what? Like, that's nothing to do with it. That's
I think I saw that on Wikipedia.
Made up and it's like floating around out there somewhere. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it was interesting working on the book, because it's called Funny Because It's True. And I was thinking a lot about like, how do you decide something is true? And like, what evidence do you use? And, and if you're just going by what people say, that you have, sometimes you can't like fact check what just some guy said, it's hard to do that sometimes. And it was interesting how over the course of researching the book, a number of times, it took me about 5-6 years to finish this. There were a number of times where, my head would spin a little bit with all the sort of extra information and to try to figure out like what to include and what not to include and, that kind of thing. So, it gets stuff kind of, I don't know, in the online environment, like information just sort of kind of escapes and like sometimes runs off on its own, and like picks up all of this stuff along the way. And it can be very strange to try to figure out like, how to sort of present something or frame something. So, yeah.
I was just, curious about that because, just like how, like, when you read, like, because it's like ephemeral kind of like the stories are like, it's either like if you're reading the physical paper, then it's like if you're reading like the website and like it's sometimes I'll think of a story, like I'll think of an Onion story and I'm like trying to remember it and I'll go Google it and search for it and it takes me forever or something. Like and then so like I have like a background like in comedy and memes and stuff. And so like I thought that was an interesting aspect of like before they got online, like the there was a memification of Onion stories where radio people were just stealing them and stuff.
Yeah,
and
no, absolutely. Yeah.
And like I being from the Midwest, I like didn't know this. I just like assume that everything that I like comedically is like from like from like Second City or like Harvard.
Right.
Like that's like the disillusion about being a comedian from the Midwest is like, oh, I can't go to SNL because my parents weren't rich enough or whatever. Like, and I know there's exceptions, but like, but like listening to this was so like awesome because like, oh, these were just like Midwestern folk. They weren't like Ivy Leaguers, and you talk about that. I was like, maybe that's why like I didn't know how. And I guess my question about that is like, can you do, I was just wondering if you can kind of speak about the Midwest identity and how it helped shape the Onion's voice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Onion, I mean, there was some experimenting with bylines early on, a lot of fake names, but when they kind of redesigned themselves at around 1995, and it became like really just like total straight up kind of straight newspaper parody, I mean, it's all anonymous. Everything's written, but there aren't any names attached with those stories or the columns. Who writes Jim Anchower? Nobody knows. Who writes Gene Teasdale? And that felt really Midwestern to me. I would say that after having lived in the East Coast for a long time, after growing up in the Midwest, on the East Coast, it's just expected that you're going to be, cutthroat and, ambitious and like shove your way to the top and all that kind of stuff. And in the Midwest, it's like, that's really frowned upon, actually, like you don't push yourself up to the front and you aren't like visibly ambitious, I mean, that's just not part of the vibe. So there was that aspect of it. The fact that the Onion is anonymous I think it kind of helped people, it helped them stretch a little bit. I think they probably took some chances that maybe they wouldn't have taken if they hadn't all been anonymous, but that feels really Midwestern to me, the very dryness of the humor. And I think so much of the 90s and 2000s Onion, especially the 90s, I think, was a lot of the Onion stories were about, it was parodying the kind of small town and sort of suburban local newspapers that we grew up with. And kind of like everyday people, which weirdly, don't necessarily tend to appear in sort of coastal media very much, despite the fact that we're probably, I don't know if are there more than of us than them? I don't know, but it's, it's like weirdly, I mentioned somewhere in the book that like, sort of your average Midwesterner is not a person that really sees a lot of media coverage, right? But in a weird way, the Onion, gave that person like a lot of coverage through a very, like affectionate and sometimes, very like cutting and hilarious way. But like, area man, area woman, I mean, those are Midwesterners, at least in my mind.
I recently like found you can search your city on the Onion's website and you can find stories.
Good
and,
idea. I hadn't thought about that.
And my favorite Wichita story, as I'm turning 40 this year, was it was like for Wichita, it was like towns 40 under 40 are just people with regular careers. I was like, that makes me like, cause I was like, it'd be nice to be on that list. And then like, I'm a mover and shaker. And then it's like, I was like, all right, I'll be humble. I feel humble now. Like, it's like, I do want to take a second and just say that I really enjoyed the foreword where you talk about Keck's parents and like them being journalists and like her like fighting this like fighting for the workers in their town in Wisconsin. I just thought that was like a really cool way to start the story, especially as like what happened with corporate and media conglomerates kind of and their influence on the Onion. And I just it added a lot of heart to the book. So
thanks. Yeah, that was important to me. Yeah, they were in Hammond, Indiana. It was that just seemed, I don't know, that just seemed really important to me because then Tim's mom also was like the advisor. She was like the sort of only grown up who was advising the first year of the Onion, so her DNA is in there a little bit.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
I think the foreword also really centers the story of the Onion in Madison because if I remember correctly, There's a lot of just the environment of Madison and U of W, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of like felt that, and growing up from another Midwestern area, and I did go to a little regional college too. So it's like the same thing. You get that sense of that identity from the beginning.
And I have to say, Gumby's Pizza is apparently are in every college town because we have them in KU's town.
Oh, really? That's so funny. When I was working in the UW archives, I would find a lot of old issues of The Onion, like on eBay and stuff, and in people's garages in Madison. But at the university archives here in town, I'm in Madison now. They also had some old issues. When I was going through, I actually found an old Gumby's Pizza insert in one of the 1990s Onions. I immediately took a picture of it and sent it to Rob Siegel, who was editor at the time, and he thought that was. I think he got a kick out of that, but yeah.
So you worked on this book. We were able to find 6 years. Is that how long you worked on it?
Something like that. Yeah.
And you interviewed a wide range of people, from former staffers, readers, Weird Al Yankovic. From a reader's perspective, it seemed like most people's association with The Onion was more positive than negative. Yeah. I know there was not always the case, but I really seemed like everyone had a soft spot in their heart that worked on it for The Onion. I guess my question is, did you have fun writing this?
Oh yeah, it was really fun. I was working on this during the pandemic, right? And there were some other difficult things happening in my personal life and stuff like that. So it was really great to, sit and watch The Onion News Network for an hour, as part of my work. I laughed really, really hard. It was just really fun to talk to a lot of these people, because I hadn't met even the 1990s staff. I had left Madison before the Onion really took off, and so I knew a lot of people's names and they had heard my name, but I hadn't actually met them. So now, I'm actually friends with some of these people now, and I didn't really know them before. So, people who write for The Onion, they're all really smart, they're all really funny, they're really good talkers, they're all kind of weird and interesting, and it was just really fun to talk to all those people. Yeah,
that's really cool. It sounds like a lot of fun working on it. We're gonna go ahead and take a break. And when we'll be back, Jenny's going to ask you some questions. We're going to kind of dip into the ideas of media literacy. So thank you again, Christine, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that the Wichita Public Library offers a large selection of digital magazines for free? They are easy to access and are now available to you on the Libby app. You can download Libby from your phone or tablet's app store, sign in with your Wichita Public Library card, and start browsing immediately. Magazines can be found under the Guide section on Libby and include popular magazine titles about news and politics, cooking, celebrity news, healthy living, and more. For additional information on Libby, please visit wichita.overdrive.com.
And we're back with Christine Wenc, author of Funny Because It's True, How the Onion Created Modern American News Satire. And I think Jenny's here, and she's our enrichment librarian. And so with The Onion and satire and media, what's going on, you talk a lot in the book about social media. So Jenny's got some questions about that. Jenny's done a lot of media literacy programs and outreach. So yeah, go ahead, Jenny. So,
yeah. And I think right now it's just really important to talk about it too, just because of everything that's been going on. So in the book, you talk about the phenomenon of The Onion, predicting the future. And I know we've heard that too, from other comedy. The Simpsons is probably the most famous one I can think of. But in the book, you say it basically comes down to human predictability and kind of making an educated guess based on human patterns. So were there any predictions you came across that shocked you with how close they came to reality? We're thinking for us, when we came across some of the old footage of the Jode Kressbeckler from 2008 from the Onion News Network. Any listeners, if you haven't had a chance to YouTube that, I would suggest it. It's kind of it's a little eerie. But were there any
Yeah.
for you that were like
I
interesting?
mean, Jode's got to be up there for me for sure. I mean, there's like little ones and big ones. I mean, I guess for me, it's almost like it seems strange that it is actually so easy to predict the future in a weird way, especially when in the book, in writing it, I thought a lot about how media sort of creates reality as much as it sort of, it's supposed to be reporting on reality, but it actually really kind of shapes it and frames it and tells us, the words to use to talk about it and the concepts and stuff like that. And so I think it's more, there's a weird blurring there, I guess, that happens for me. People, they sort of copy what they see on the media. And that's one of the reasons I think for The Onion is so good at, predicting the future is because it really understands the kind of the structure of the way media works and the kind of, the way their writing process works. It's like almost mathematical, it's almost like a formula, not a formula, but it's like a formula in really like the mathematical sense, not the like sort of genre sense, and anyone who understands media really, really well, like won't be surprised when people, start behaving in the ways that they've seen on the media, I guess, if that makes sense. I kind of took that in a different direction, but I thought about that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a good point too. And I think with people that do satire, a lot of it is kind of just observing human behavior and kind of, just pointing it out to people.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah. That's totally like a genre of Onion story. It's just like describing reality very plainly. And you can do that like in a really silly way. Like I like the headlines that are like rubber band needed, like stuff like that. But you put them in the kind of a headline and it becomes funny because you're doing this ordinary everyday thing and into a headline. But I do think there's like something interesting. They're sort of pointing out something interesting there. The importance of something changes whether or not the media is reporting on it, even if it's not important, So yeah, all these things kind of mix together in my mind. Life and media are really blurred together right now in ways that I'm not super thrilled with, but I think you can't really deny that. So yeah.
Yeah, there's some
I have made jokes that have come true. Like I made a joke once that like Total Recall, like the movie would be like this thing that you would like in the like in real life, it would just be like in one of those middle of the aisle mall kiosks. And then like I made that joke and then like all of a sudden like all these VR like mall kiosks and everyone's like send it to me. It's like, didn't you make this as a joke like 5 years ago? Like
yeah.
And
well, The Onion is almost like a genre of science fiction to me in a weird way. And like, and people have written like their dissertations on how like sort of what happens in real, like even scientists, they get ideas from reading science fiction. So, I mean, you're like, it's like, there is a strain, people do stuff because they got the idea from somewhere. And sometimes they get it from someone who just made it up. Right. So yeah.
There was a whole documentary about that. I think it was called The Prophets of Science Fiction. And it was
Oh, really? I don't know about that. Yeah.
It's about these famous science fiction authors, like starting with like Mary Shelley and Jules Verne and stuff, and how they actually influenced like physicists and stuff. Like not just other authors, but like how they had a real world impact. It was really interesting.
Yeah, what is it like? Everyone's talking about Parable of the Sower.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, okay, like it's actually happening.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah. You just have to be a good observer. There's a lot more information out there, I think. Yeah.
In the early years of The Onion, you did mention in the book that people often thought because the stories were in print,
right,
they had to be true. And I think at the time too, it was kind of presenting itself like a paper.
Yeah, no, it totally was. Yeah.
Like, so compared to today, though, how do you think that's changed in the intervening years, especially when now some of our actual headlines from legit news sources are almost, if not more, ridiculous than the stuff you see from news satire?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, I thought a lot about like why, what makes a real life headline seem like an Onion headline, right? And I think it's because part of it is so the Onion takes the very straight, news format, AP style, and puts all this crazy stuff into it. But now in real life, people are doing crazy stuff. Public, politicians and public figures are behaving in ways that, would have gotten them thrown out even, 5, 10, 20 years ago, right? But you take all these completely insane, ludicrous behavior and put it in that straight style, and just present it, in a straight way, and it just becomes an Onion story, So yeah, I mean, it's a weird time right now. I mean, there's a lot of like blurring of I mean, I don't know. The whole idea of truth has obviously become really blurry, and like what you use as criteria for truth, and this huge divide that we have and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a strange time,
especially with like AI, and like if you like go to some of these like pictures that are obviously AI slop, and you just see the comments, and like it's a bunch of people like commenting, "Oh, it's such a beautiful baby," and now it's like this weird thing where like all those comments are also possibly AI.
No, I was gonna say, like, and all the comments are fake too. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. We're probably about 2 years away from the internet being totally unusable.
That's I always go, come on, solar flare. Just get close enough to take out the satellites.
Well, and then on top of that, you have, because of that, bringing up the AI, that's a really great point, is that you have people now questioning legit stuff.
Exactly.
And going, oh, well, that's AI,
Right, exactly. That's like the next round of fake news, because there's like fake news, because it's not on the TV network you watch, or fake news in sense of like, I don't agree with it. Fake news that is actually fake news. It's like designed to sow chaos. You have new satire, which is good fake news. But now you can, you're just like, oh, well, it was just AI. And it's weird because like, I don't think any of us, I mean, I think for really good reasons, it's just like, well, is that real? Like, how do you tell?
Yeah. I'm shocked that like you can't even tell people to Google things anymore, because like Google's a profit driven, like the people can, we were doing some research recently, and like we were searching things, and I forgot what we were searching, but it was like Americans for Prosperity. Like it was like looking up like stuff about like events in history, and like I think one was like Bill Clinton's Iran nuclear deal from the 90s. And I noticed it was like that and something else, but both of like when you search this thing that's like supposed to just have like, you're looking for the Wikipedia article about it, right?
Yeah,
but like some Americans for Prosperity article is like the top hit. Right. And you're like, oh, you can't even tell someone to Google something for like accurate information because of like this, like, like if you have a point of view and ideology you want to get across, you can just like dump money into your landing site. And it's like, and it's just like, it's hard. It's becoming harder. And it's like, I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm feeling like ChatGPT can also like be a better like resource than Google. And it's like, that's just where we're at. And it's like awful.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now we have people being like, well, I use ChatGPT instead of Google. And somebody was like saying that on the radio. And I'm like, please, no, don't say
no. It's like something like 60, like 40 to 70% of what you're going to get is inaccurate. I'm just reading it. I read all these studies all the time, but it reflects on like what sort of why I wrote the book in the first place. And there's sort of like a non-AI version of this. So like when I was Googling like origins of the internet, I was like, wait, this isn't right. Like that person didn't do this. Like this is not right at all. But then I realized that stuff was being repeated by like the college journalists who were attending the talks. And then later, because journalists have to churn out all of this stuff, you don't fact check. And why would you want to fact check something that seems so trivial, right? And so it was this weird snowball effect. And so even like the Wikipedia page for The Onion was just wrong. And I went in and tried to fix it, and all my edits were rejected because it didn't match what was in the media, right? And so I'm just like, so this strange like alternate history of the Onion sort of arose, really because of the work of just like kind of just one person and a few people, and the people who were reporting on it, not realizing that it wasn't. Anyway, it was very strange, but and I was like, wow, it's actually become pretty darn easy to like sort of manufacture like an alternate history of whatever, if you just spend enough time and realize how this stuff all kind of feeds on itself. Anyway, I got a little sidetracked there, but it's interesting. I mean, you're librarians. You guys are going to be the people that we really need to, provide us with actual, real information, so your work is really important.
That actually makes me think of something that came out like about a month ago. The Chicago Tribune had a summer reading list that got published. And about half of them were real. But then they had like 5 books at the end that were not. They were like from legit authors, but they were books they actually hadn't written.
Yeah. It was books that didn't exist, right?
Yeah. And it was because the writer who's like, kind of freelance writer that's selling their article to different papers had used AI for like the second half of it.
Yeah.
And of
it's
course,
crazy because I'm just like, wait, why didn't the editor check that or what? But of course, you got to fill so much space in your newspaper. It's like, do I really need to check to see that this book of list of 20 books all actually exists? Well, now you kind of do.
They were trusting that columnist that was submitting it to them, and just let it go. And it made news for a few days. And
I remember reading about that.
That's a perfect example.
Like, I don't AI is going to recommend books to people like that don't exist. Means job security for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If people remember that like there are libraries, like they're free. Sometimes people don't know libraries are free, Yeah.
It's weird. I'm seeing people like there's these like weird like every town now has like this weird like question and answer where people will ask a question and not like for anything like a barbershop near me, and then people answer it because people don't have, they know how Facebook works, but they don't like, they're finding these other outlets for access of it. It's like you could just call the library.
I kind of forget that there's
one of the like I think I was kind of shocked to see how accurate and fact checking it was involved with the Onion. I think like the anecdote you gave about what star was it? It was the
Alpha Centauri versus what was, I can't remember the one that was the actual number of light years away. Barnard's star or something.
So like there were like because Alpha Centauri is funnier. But it's like they were like, but that the radio. So the whole joke was like, radio waves are finally reaching it was like
the last Cheers
finale
finally reaches Alpha Centauri because it's been 4 years, and so there's this huge fight about but Alpha Centauri is 6 light years away. So if it was only going 4 light years, it would have to be Barnard's star. And so the fight was anybody who's going to get the joke is going to know that Alpha Centauri is the wrong distance. But anyway, that kind of stuff, like I loved hearing stories like that because they just showed, how seriously people took this stuff, because they really did, I mean, the Onion's writing process is extremely rigorous, I mean, I gained so much respect for their editorial process by when I'm working on this book, but that story is also just funny. So, yeah.
I loved the fact that was brought up in the book, though, about the fact that there were fact checkers at the Onion and people didn't think about, like, why would you have fact checkers? But honestly, to do good satire, I think it's, having, your facts right so that you can intelligently, make humor out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like the fact checker for like The Daily Show was just legendary. I mean, they did more fact checking on The Daily Show in the 2000s than probably like the Real News did, right?
Yeah. That actually is a good segue into my next question. We talked a little bit about it briefly about new satire shows like The Colbert Report and The Daily Show. You mentioned them being actually centers for media literacy. So I found that very interesting, though I completely agreed. I was like, actually, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're mostly intended to be entertainment. They're not supposed
Sure.
to be taken as, serious news sources. But what does it say about our media landscape when, satire news programs are actually the place you go to learn about how to objectively and critically evaluate your news?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I think there was a time. So there are all these scholars who work on news satire, and I talked to a bunch of them for the book. And if I had talked to them, 10 years ago, they would have had a lot to say about that. And it was news satire of saving democracy, and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting because now, they were like, wait, maybe news satire isn't saving democracy, like maybe what we thought was happening, maybe it wasn't happening, or maybe it was only happening for, people like us, maybe a lot of people just thought it was funny, and that is as far as it went. So, I think that it probably, I think those shows, I think they do serve as a form of teaching media literacy. But at the same time, there's a lot of other forms of media that are, that's like the bad fake news that is kind of actively involved in, just kind of creating chaos and making people afraid. And, it's like the Fox News side of things. And which is, weirdly, it's like another form of fake news. Just has a different, their mission is to elect, conservative politicians and keep them in power, right? And they've been extremely effective at that. So I don't know. I don't know what the sort of, best answer or right answer to that question really is anymore. I think it's weird to be in a place where you sort of feel like you have to be skeptical of everything. That gets really tiring. I think that's why I like to do like nature stuff and my ecosystem restoration, because those plants aren't lying to me, it's that stuff is, I want to go out and do much more stuff with my hands. I want to go talk to people in real life. I want to look people in the eye. I want to get my hands in the dirt. I want to move stuff with my body, I don't want to spend all this time kind of neck up, in the internet land. I just feel like I'm just getting like a really yucky feeling, like spending too much time there. So I don't know. I would just tell people to just go spend more time in the real world. Just get off your freaking screen.
Comedy wise, I do feel like in the last few years, like political satire just doesn't hit anymore. Like,
yeah,
I will clown on my like millennial friends for like still watching John Oliver, and like I'm like, how do you do this? It's not funny. Like nothing's funnier than the actual headlines.
Yeah.
So, like we had astronauts.
I've become like a big Nathan Fielder fan. Because like it's like he's going somewhere really interesting with how media works and kind of what's left out. I don't know. I'm really enjoying like the second season. I'm getting my mind blown kind of a lot watching that right now. So it's just really interesting what he's doing. I don't know if I could even really quite describe it yet, but he's doing something that seems different.
Him and Craig Robinson, I don't know if you've seen like I Think You Should Leave. That's another like just he just came out with a movie with Paul Rudd called Friendship. And
okay, no, I'll check that out.
It's about like, it's very like, his whole humor is very like cringy and uncomfortable social awkwardness and like social situations, but to the point where like I went to this movie, his movie recently, and I like had to watch it through my shirt from cringing. But like as someone that like has a phobia of embarrassing situations, it was like very like, and so that's kind of like where, you kind of talk, I think it was Hansen that talked in the book about like some of our best satirists were like leading into like the Trump election. Like, they were like firing on all barrels or with shots. And like, it was just nothing was like swaying people or anything. If there's this idea that like satire was like swaying, which you kind of talk about in the book, having some kind of sway over like people's opinions on like leaders, and it was like nothing was phased and stuff. And then I just think that it's the death of satire in the last few years is very interesting. And like
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, think about like where the Onion is going now. I mean, satire. I feel like the part of the function of satire is it's like a morale boosting. Like does satire bring down the Berlin Wall? No, but does it tell you that you're not the only one who thinks what's going on is crazy? Like, yeah, that can be a good thing, and it can introduce kind of new ideas or new sort of interpretations of stuff. And, with the Onion, so the Onion has new owners now. And as of last year, because the new people there by about a year, and they sort of freed them from sort of like corporate, awfulness, into the kind of like, kind of do what they want again. And so one of the first interesting things they did was win that auction, although now it's tied up in court to buy InfoWars, right? And so that was super interesting to me because it's like the Onion sort of going out in the real world. It was like the Onion, it's becoming Onion sort of taking its sort of text-based performance art and kind of taking it out into like the actual world, which is kind of what like Nathan Fielder's is that the
We're actually in the only
there's something strange happening there. So I mean, I don't know what the Onion is going to do next, but I feel like they want to try something different. I mean, they brought back the print edition, and it's been so long since print like meant anything. Like there's something like weirdly avant-garde about bringing back the print edition or something, even though it's also sort of like old-fashioned. Like I don't know. I mean, they want to try different things, and I really hope that they are like brave enough or like have the right kind of creative leadership to like really do something that's maybe new, but I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was actually gonna like check out I was going to subscribe for the print edition. I'm curious about it.
It's fun to get in. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm old school. I always thought the Onion was best in print, and there's stuff that really works. The Onion works well about stuff that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it just isn't this endless, sea of thumbnail videos or whatever. Like it's like a thing, it's like going out and having a nice meal. Like, I was all day. You're just having the thing.
I was subscribed to a magazine called Meme Insider for that knowyourmeme.com put out because I was like, I just want to, not that you should read anything in public, but I just want to read this in public because it's the most absurd title ever. Like Meme Insider.
Is that for like PR people, or are they just like being
like they would
read about memes in print?
That's exactly what it was. They would like it was a lot of like it was so they would like just a like short biography of me is like I got really involved in this like online meme community like called Weird Facebook around 2016, and a lot of those people were like ended up being like guys from Harvard that those were the only people that ended up being famous from it, like the Know Your Meme game, and then like the Firefest guys and then they got all in trouble because the whole like they started doing the branding thing you talk about the Onion was moving into, and then they all got like Bloomberg ran for president, and then a lot of those guys got in like hot water for like making branded content to get people to vote for Bloomberg, and it was like reading that to Onion went through like towards like that too. Yeah, the whole social media era of the Onion was like stuff I felt personally as a comedian too, and it was really cool that I got to like because like that community that I was involved with was like came out of like clickbait like clickhole, because on one side people were disseminating information through these like BuzzFeed articles, but then they were also making like Tweety Bird memes and like putting more minions and making like, oh, I can't wait for Friday, and so like that's what we were satirizing was like the lower end and like the of that. So like this was a really cool experience, and even also interviewing you about this and talking about it has been really awesome. So I just want to say thanks and stuff. But I totally derailed.
No, you're
I just want to say that like because what the Onion, part of the reason I wanted to put the Onion in the bigger context of other media is because like news organizations were going through all the same things the Onion was going through. Like in what you're talking about, like anybody who is creating something for like the public to see or read or whatever, like was struggling with like these same changes and like all the platforms coming in and hijacking everybody's clicks and like all that kind of stuff. Like lots of different entities were going through the same thing. And so, this, I don't know, it's just like my sort of sideways way of like telling a history of that, like through the Onion. So,
and I think, this book is more about does become more about media and it's how it's changed from print to cable. Like, because the Onion did start like right as like cable starts taking off.
Exactly.
And then like the internet. So it's like the last 30 to 40 years of media is drastically different. Like,
yeah. And it's interesting that, like I'm kind of amazed that the Onion like still exists. I mean, how is the Onion still here after almost 40 years? I mean, maybe it's some of the same people who've been reading it this whole time, but like, that's a really long time for a comedy entity. I mean, I don't know how long Mad Magazine lasted, but I mean, it just, to me, it's like, there's something strange going on when this like really sharp, satire and criticism of media is still popular after all this time. Like something that, I don't know, it's a reason for hope, I guess. Like, I don't know.
I forgot to mention it as of November. I know as of November of 2024, I haven't checked. Wichita, Kansas's radio area is like one of the only places you can watch InfoWars broadcasted on one of the antenna channels. And like,
really?
Yeah, I
didn't even know that.
Like,
you don't need cable. You can just watch it with your like.
You can watch it with your antenna. I try to watch. I don't know how close you have to be, because when I was with my girlfriend, we were watching the election in November, and she had PBS on. And I was like, hold on, and I would try to switch to InfoWars because I was like, we're going to be fair and balanced here. We're going to switch between all the networks. It didn't come in that well, so I don't know, but it's still being broadcast, and so like it's just kind of wild.
I was going to say, I don't even know if it was even. Is it still being broadcast? Like, I don't even know.
I think it is. I haven't seen it, but it's just this one because of some like connection the family that owns the station has to Alex Jones. That's why it's still being broadcast. But anyway, I don't know why I wanted to mention that, but.
Got any more Onion questions?
Actually, since we kind of got a little bit into the change of the focus of media, it does make me think of another question I have, which is that you do mention in the book, like, to stay afloat, how, with the change from the focus of print to online, like short form video and stuff, and the focus on like monetization of content and branding and stuff, it kind of led to a little bit of a challenge for the writers to kind of maintain their integrity while they were also having to, monetize like the sponsored content or whatnot. So when there's these ever shifting, changes, how does how does comedy continue to thrive in that kind of an environment when, you're doing it on behalf of, Coca-Cola or whatever?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you're doing it on behalf of Coca-Cola, I just don't see how it can ever be good, really. Like, I mean, you might be entertaining to some degree, but like, I don't know. I mean, I'm part of the, generation that was opposed to selling out, and apparently now, like, I guess that's not true. Like, I don't know. But at the same time, you want to keep your publication afloat. So, I mean, I just read on the Onion's LinkedIn post, and I was hoping it was a joke. I haven't confirmed it, but it seemed like they might be starting up like their ad agency again, which made a lot of money for the Onion. They made ads for other people, they had Onion, so I was like, oh, well, that's real. That's disappointing, I guess. But like, on the other hand, you need to make money. I don't know. I don't know. But as far as, I mean, I wouldn't know what to say about the comedy question. I'm not a comedy fortune teller. I just think that you got to really, I don't know. It's hard to, I would just encourage people to like not be afraid to try new stuff or something, do something completely different, rather than, sort of focus grouping everything to death, like do something new. The Onion succeeded early on because nobody was doing anything like that, and it was a bunch of kids who weren't, there were no Hollywood agents, watching them. There weren't even any parents watching it. There was just like people kind of going with what their gut instincts told them to do. And like, you have a deadline at 3:00 in the morning, you're just going to make some stuff up, and just, I don't know, like just experiment and try a lot of different things. I don't know. I mean, It would be great. I feel like the kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like because of the way social media works and how everybody is just constantly like, video taking, pictures and recordings of everything all the time. It'd be nice if there was a space, I don't know, where you could really just do your thing and experiment and develop it, without feeling like, you're going to be reported on and watched the whole time or something. I don't know. I don't know what I would. But I mean, keep being smart and witty and penetrating, and I don't know, do some weird, interesting stuff.
I think that's the only way, really, if you're doing anything that's sponsored, that I feel like hits authentically, is some of these like YouTubers. I've seen some that they will sponsor with certain advertisers, but obviously the advertisers give them free reign. To do the bit as part of their video, and they're wacky and like cheesy, but not overly. That's the only time where it doesn't bother me. Like, I know it's an ad and I know that they're being paid, but
and maybe the fake part is pretending like the advertising is separate from what you're doing, because it's not really. I mean, if the advertising is, making it possible to do your thing, then should there, I don't know, like I don't know. I can't believe I just said that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. I mean, I mean, part of it is just, everyone's trapped in this stupid for-profit model, and there's no arts funding in this country. And it's just, there's this, brutal battle for like the 5 grants that do exist, and it's just, it's a messed up situation, because when you feel like you have to, everything you do has to make a profit, and not just a little profit, like a decent profit, like it really limits what you can do. And people just kind of end up doing the same thing over and over and over, and with a different funding model, you would see it would be very different. So I'm really bummed about the effort to, destroy what's left of public broadcasting, even though that's gotten really corporate too, but anyway, I would rethink the entire, I don't know, if you could just give the top, 10,000 creative people in the country, give them all like $50,000 and, even just in a year to make something, and you'd get a lot of amazing, amazing stuff.
Oh yeah, they do that in Scandinavian countries.
Yeah. I mean, if you just start looking at other countries, you're just like, oh wow, like we're not even. It's like our train system compared to theirs.
I feel like zines are on the rise because people are just like wanting. I feel like because of like the disappearance of a lot of different kind of media, and like zines are like made with a Xerox, and it's like and I've like really like Wichita has like 6 ongoing zines now, and it's like I'm sure this is
I
like
I thought about like, I should have like a Substack or something, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make like a photocopied thing that I will mail to people. I'll just put the address on my Substack. I don't know. I kind of want to do that actually.
So what do you plan on writing more? Do you have another book coming out or anything?
Yeah. I've got other projects. I have another project that's absolutely nothing to do with media or anything like it. Although it is about technology a little bit. I just had a National Endowment for the Humanities grant, which was just terminated by Doge for this. But it's a history of life support technology and how it changed American death. It's like a history of pulling the plug, basically. But it's about how a particular technological system came into the hospital, came into society in like the 1950s and 1960s, and in just a couple of decades, it like totally changed like how people die. And so now, I mean, I became interested in this topic after experiencing this with 2 family members who came into the hospital for 2 totally different afflictions, and yet their death process via pulling the plug in the ICU was basically identical. And I was like, wait a minute, something strange is happening here. And so that's what this next project is about.
That's we might have you back, because we've had who wrote the one we did the death industry book? I can't think of.
She was a British author, if I remember.
Oh yeah, I think there was a British author from like 10, 20 years ago who wrote a good death book.
Oh yeah.
But there's I don't know, death is like sort of cool these days.
Yeah, she did one called All That Remains. I can't remember her name, but there was a. Yeah.
And the big read was, can we talk about something more pleasant one year? So that's
Allison. That's a great book. Yeah.
So it's actually something that we like to like engage with too. Because like, it's like people like those kind of like books or people are interested. It's like something we like as a society don't want to confront, but That's really cool. I like seeing when people explore that, because I have a tough time with that. So it's like,
yeah. No, it's weird. It's weird, but it's like at this point, there was one study. This is like 1999. Like one study in the New England Journal of Medicine was like something like 20% of Americans now die as a result of pulling the plug in the ICU. And it's a modern death. It's a new death ritual. And it happens every day in hospitals. But people like me don't know this at all until we go in there and experience it. But it's actually a completely ordinary, everyday thing that happens all the time. So, and I just thought that was like, that's interesting. Yeah. And people have tried to change it. It's very hard to change that process. And anyway, yeah.
Have you read anything? Do you have any book recommendations for us?
Yeah. So I'm a very eclectic reader. I mean, like I'm reading Moby Dick for like the 30 millionth time, on and off. There's a really interesting, fairly new book by a guy named Musa Al-Gharbi called We Have Never Been Woke. It's about what he calls symbolic capitalism. It's published by Princeton University Press, I think. And it's not about wokeness, but it's about kind of how language and rhetoric is used in kind of professional culture and everyday life. And a novel that I really enjoyed was called Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's that Japanese author she was profiled in the New Yorker recently, and so I had to check her out because I love science fiction. And it's a very strange and weird and creepy book, and funny, about people in this science fiction world who don't want to have children anymore.
Thank you for those recommendations.
Sure.
And we'll put them on the show notes.
Yeah,
too.
We'll add those to the show notes. And thank you again for being on the podcast. It was really awesome interviewing you and talking about The Onion. And thanks again. And did you have any last things you want to say, Jenny?
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I really enjoyed our conversation, and I enjoyed the book too.
Thanks.
Well, again, the book is called Funny Because It's True. And I don't have my iPad.
There's a big
subtitle. There's a subtitle. And I was talking with Christine Wenc. Thank you again, Christine. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Looking for an easy way to keep track of your Read ICT challenge progress? Check out the Beanstack app. With Beanstack, you can participate in library reading challenges, log reading activities, and even win prizes. You can access the app either through the Apple or Google Play stores or on a desktop computer by visiting wichitalibrary.beanstack.org. If you are participating in the Read ICT Challenge, every month you log a book, you will be entered into a drawing for a chance to win a cool bookish-themed prize. For more information on Beanstack, visit wichitalibrary.org/Beanstack.
That was a fun interview, and it was really awesome to have Jenny join us in the second half of it. I'd like to give a shout out to Christine Wenc for joining us for that recording. This has been a production of Wichita Public Library. A big thanks and shout out to our production crew and podcast team. And don't forget to log your books in the reading tracker app Beanstack. We're doing summer reading right now, and then we'll do Read ICT throughout the year, and it's a great way to challenge yourself. I just completed the summer reading program. It's the first time I've ever done the adult summer reading program. And it was really easy to keep track of everything I did. I go to art museums a lot, which a lot of the things I had to check off were art stuff. So that was really cool. And you can do all that by downloading the Beanstack app. You can follow this podcast on the Spotify app or stream episodes on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. We're on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts. Wherever you check out podcasts, we're probably there. And if you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe to our show and also tell your friends. Post it on socials. Spread the love. And shout out to all the people that listen to this podcast. I just want to say I appreciate each and every one of you. I know we've had some changes this season, but we're still trying to put out a really good show and have really good interviews. And thanks for listening. And I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great day.